I'm anticipating Snow just poisoning a bunch of people. That's what I think. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Leia. I'm feeling very dry and ashy. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to be reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Rax. This video is a part of a series where I reread the original Hunger Games trilogy. If you're curious to know my thoughts and feelings on those books, I have videos on my channel that you can check out if you want to. But today I'm going to be reading A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is my first time reading the book, and I also haven't watched the movie, so I don't really know anything about this at all. I know it's about President Snow. I feel like it's just gonna be his villain origin story. I feel like in general, I don't hear super great reviews about this book. I'm not really going into this with super high expectations, but I'm hoping it'll still be interesting. This video is also going to have spoilers. So if you do not want to know what happens in this book, don't watch it. My plans for the day are to play Animal Crossing and read. So I'm excited to get into it. Okay, see you soon, bye. Okay, so last night I read the first part of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I just want to make a blanket statement that I have no idea how to pronounce anyone's names, and I'm too lazy to check. I thought Snow's name was Cornelius for like 50 pages, and then I realized it was Coriolanus. I like Cornelius better. So in the beginning of the book, we're kind of just getting a background of Snow's life as a teenager. He talks about how his family was very prestigious and well-known in the capital. They had a lot of money. But then during the Rebel Wars, he lost both of his parents, and his family lost all of their money. So he currently lives with his grandma and his cousin, who is Tigress. And Tigress was the tiger lady from Mockingjay that harbors Katniss when they were trying to sneak into President Snow's mansion to kill him. So it's very interesting that they're cousins, and they're also very close. I feel like she really takes care of him and looks out for him as if he were like a younger brother. So I'm really interested to see what happens with their relationship. I'm assuming they have a falling out. Anyway, Snow attends an academy. However, he wants to eventually go to university after he graduates. And it costs money to go to university, which he doesn't have, but he's putting on this show that he is still rich. He cares very much about his reputation. He's very charismatic. He's very well liked amongst his teachers and his peers. But being in Snow's head, you can tell that his charm is all strategic. Like, the things that he says and does is very calculated. He has a frenemy named Sejanus, potentially. Sejanus used to live in District 2, but his family was so rich that they were able to move to the capital. And I think President Snow is kind of jealous of the easy life that Sejanus lives, that Snow feels that he deserves. And he feels that Sejanus doesn't appreciate it enough, so I feel like he kind of resents him a little bit. The academy's principal is Dean Highbottom, and Snow feels like everyone likes him except for the principal. This year is the 10th anniversary of the Hunger Games, so this is the first year that they are introducing mentors. So what they're doing is they're handpicking students to be mentors for this year's districts. To increase incentive, the student that mentors the winner of the Hunger Games receives, I believe, a scholarship to go to the university. So he's taking this mentorship very, very seriously, but Highbottom assigns him to the girl in District 12. And this is kind of like a slap in the face to Snow, because District 12 is notoriously the weakest and poorest district. Snow is basically like, I'm fucked. But then when he watches the recording of the reaping, the girl tribute from 12 is named Lucy Gray. And as she's going up to the stage, she pulls a snake out of her pocket and puts it down another girl's dress who happens to be the mayor's daughter. And then the mayor slaps her in the face and she goes on stage and like starts singing a song. So she's a little crazy. She's a little unhinged. has a very bold personality, but Snow feels like he can use this to his advantage. When the tributes are sent to the Capitol, Snow shows up to formally introduce himself to Lucy Gray. He's the only mentor that does this. They're keeping all of the tributes in a abandoned monkey cage in the zoo. Snow perpetually visits her and feeds her and kind of like gains her trust. I think the more he spends time with her and gets to know her, starts to kind of humanize her more. I think he actually is starting to have feelings for her, which surprises me because President Snow always kind of gave me gay vibes, but I guess it makes for a good story if they maybe have feelings for each other. The other mentors start to visit their tributes. There is one mentor named, I apologize, Arachne. Maybe Arachne Crane visits her tribute and goes to give him a sandwich. And then when the tribute goes to reach for the sandwich, she like pulls it away. So she's like taunting her tribute through the bars of the cage. So her tribute gets pissed, pulls out a knife, and then cuts her in the jugular and she dies. If I'm starving in a cage and you're taunting me with a sandwich and I had a knife, Dr. Gall, who again is the head game maker or headmaster, game master, she kind of like puts on this huge performance and basically uses it to villainize the tributes and create an even further division between the Capitol and the districts. Even though Snow knows on the back of his mind that Arachne kind of did it to herself, also he was like, she sucks. He doesn't even give a shit that she's dead. So he recognizes the fact that they're just using her death as a political strategy. Sejanus is a mentor to the boy from District 2. Sejanus is very empathetic for tributes. He does not like the Hunger Games and makes that opinion very well known. So the District 2 male tribute's name is Marcus. And Sejanus actually knows Marcus because Sejanus, like I said, was from District 2 prior to them moving to the Capitol. So he actually used to be in classes with Marcus. Sejanus is trying to like reach out to him and like gain his trust, but Marcus like wants nothing to do with him and is completely stonewalling Sejanus. Sejanus thinks that Snow is like his best friend, but Snow actually secretly resents him and only pretends to be his best friend because he's trying to be as well liked amongst all people as possible. Snow thinks that Sejanus is almost like stupid for even empathizing with the districts. He's like, you have so much power and so much privilege. Like, why are you wasting your time caring about other people? Right before Arachne died, Dr. Gall assigned a project for Snow, Clemencia, and Arachne to come up with a proposal to how they can get the Capitol and the tributes more involved within the Hunger Games. But then Arachne died, so she couldn't really do that. And then Clemencia was so upset about Arachne's death that she's like, I'm not drafting this proposal. So then Snow brings it upon himself to draft it himself, hands the proposal into Dr. Gall. Dr. Gall calls him and Clemencia into her office. They both like previously decided that they would just pretend that they both wrote the proposal. Then Dr. Gall was like, okay, well, I littered the bottom of this snake terrarium with your proposal, so will you reach your hand in and grab it out for me? Something enters into their environment that doesn't smell like their environment, then they'll attack. She's explaining this as Clemencia is like reaching her hand in to pull a part of the proposal out, and then the snake bites her in the hand and she has to get rushed to the hospital. And basically it was Dr. Gall in a really weird sadistic way being like, yeah, I know you were lying. Then they establish a day where the mentors and the tributes get together and they all go to the Hunger Games arena and they're just taking a tour. As they're walking through it, someone sets off these bombs. Snow gets really injured and I think he's like set on fire or something, but he starts screaming Lucy's name to help him, and Lucy has this moment of conflict where she doesn't know if she should like basically run away and try to escape or if she should turn back to help Snow. She ends up helping Snow, but this now creates a change in the power dynamic between Snow and Lucy Gray, because now that Lucy Gray has saved Snow's life, he is now indebted to her. Marcus, who was Sejanus's tribute from District 2, actually was able to escape. I feel like part 1 was a lot of buildup to the story, and I'm hoping it gets a little bit more interesting. It's interesting to learn about like how the Hunger Games became what they were when like Katniss entered them, but I don't know. I think I'm just like not super emotionally invested in the story. And anyway, I'm gonna make a matcha and read part 2 now. This is really good lighting. I would argue a little too good. Anyway, I finished part 2 of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Snow and Lucy Gray prepare for her public interview, and they decide that she is going to perform a song because Lucy Gray is known for her singing and she's a performer. She ends up performing the song and everyone eats it up. They love her. And Snow finds himself becoming jealous of Lucy Gray. He's jealous of the attention that he's getting because everyone's talking about her as if she's kind of like his belonging. Like they keep going up to him and being like, oh, your girl. Like, you're so lucky you got this tribute. And he feels that the attention isn't so much on himself for like creating her, but that she's like this own entity that he was like lucky enough to get assigned to. He's also jealous because the song that she sang implies that she had another lover in the past, and he is jealous because he wants to be her lover. He likes her. So it comes a time where Snow and Lucy Gray have one more meeting before she is sent into the arena. And Snow is really starting to doubt that she can actually win the Hunger Games. And Snow becomes really sad that there's a very good chance that he is going to lose her. And he wants to give her some form of possession that means a lot to him and will be like the equivalent of her saving his life. Lucy Gray's also like shitting her pants and she's like, okay, let's be real, there's no way I'm winning this and I don't want to die. He ends up giving her his mom's mirror compact, which is like his prized possession because it still smells like her. And he basically implies, he's like, you could fill this with rat poison. He also reveals to her that he was jealous of her song, implying that she had like an ex-boyfriend. And she was like, you're the only guy I have a soft spot for now. And right before they get up to leave, they kiss. So now it's more publicly known that they like have feelings for each other. While all this is going on in class, they're having discussions with President Gull just about the morality of the Hunger Games and the reason for the Hunger Games and the purpose of war. And Snow in general kind of talks about how he hates war because war has caused him a lot of suffering in his life. But he also talks about how like winning the war and being on top is necessary in order to be able to control everyone else and prevent further wars from happening. And I just noticed this like theme where he is, I feel like, constantly pursuing control. The first day of the Hunger Games, they give everyone the nice surprise that Marcus was actually captured by the Capitol. And the first thing everyone sees is Marcus being hung from a beam inside of the arena. So that was really dark. Janice is very upset by this, and the following night he sneaks into the arena somehow and starts to pour breadcrumbs over Marcus's body. The reason he's pouring breadcrumbs is because it's like some spiritual meaning from Tribute 2 to like spread breadcrumbs on the dead. Snow is like, what a stupid ritual. Are you guys all starving because you're saving breadcrumbs to spread over dead people? He's kind of an asshole, but like that was kind of funny. Anyway, Dr. Gull calls Snow and is basically like, you're his BFF, you gotta go in there and drag him out. Even then, Snow has the foresight to be like, the only way I can get Sejanus out of the arena is if I convince him that he is doing the right thing and that like he can make this like positive change in the world. So I do think he's like extremely intelligent and can read people very well. He kind of schmoozes Sejanus when he gets in there and they both go to sneak out, but then the other tributes come running up and try to kill them. Snow starts to defend himself and I think he like takes like this board, starts like beating the shit out of one of the tributes. They escape out of the arena. Dr. Gull and Dean Highbottom. By the way, earlier when I was talking about Highbottom, I'm like, yeah, he's the principal and his name is Dean Highbottom. No, he's the dean. That's his title. He is a dean and his last name is Highbottom. So they call him Dean Highbottom. Dean isn't his name, but it's also a name, but you can see why I got confused. Anyway, they alter the footage so that it's really, really dark, so no one would be able to tell that Sejanus and Snow like snuck into the arena, killed a tribute, and left. Snow is pretty beat up after that altercation, and instead of going to the hospital, he goes to Dr. Gull's lab. Dr. Gull reveals to Snow that one of the mentors that was hospitalized from the bombing earlier actually died, and as Snow is leaving the arena, he sees this like terrarium of a bunch of snakes that Dr. Gull's lab assistants are carting out of the lab. they forgot something and left for a second, and Snow's alone with these snakes, and he kind of puts together that he thinks Gull is going to sick all the snakes on the tributes in the arena. Remembering what happened to Clemencia, he takes out a handkerchief that has Lucy Gray's scent and then dumps it into the tank in hopes that the snakes will get used to Lucy Gray's smell and they won't attack her. The next day, they announce that Sejanus's dad, who's like super rich, is offering a full ride to the university to the mentor that will win the Hunger Games. I kind of thought this was already offered, but I think originally they were just saying that the winning mentor will have some form of prize. They did dump a bunch of the snakes in the arena, and the snakes start like killing a bunch of tributes. Lucy Gray comes out and starts like singing to all the snakes. Like she has a little like seance moment where all the snakes gather over to her and like wrap around her skirt. I didn't really fully understand what was happening in that moment, but basically I think she put them in a trance and they did not attack her. In terms of the Hunger Games, tributes are killing each other. I don't think it really matters. Eventually, Lucy Gray wins the Hunger Games. Yay! And Snow is like getting hammered, celebrating with his friends. And then someone's like, yeah, the dean needs to see you right away. And so he goes into a room and sees Highbottom. And Highbottom is holding out in front of him the compact that he gave Lucy Gray, along with the handkerchief that he snuck into the snake terrarium. And there was like one more thing, but they're basically like, we know you cheated. The last thing that we're told in part 2 is that as punishment, Snow has to become a peacekeeper. So that's it. I'm interested to see what happens. It's kind of hard to predict where I think the story is gonna go. I kind of thought it would be like his lifespan up until his presidency and not so much just like this 1 year he was in school. I think Dr. Gull is really shady, so a part of me feels like she set him up. I think it's just really convenient that he was alone with a snake terrarium in an elevator. In terms of Lucy Gray, I know she won the Hunger Games, but like, I don't think her future is bright. There's no way she lives a long, full life after this. Like, I'm just curious to see how it ends, because I feel like there is still a lot of unanswered questions. I also kind of hope she explains to us what happens between Tigris and Snow. And if she doesn't explain it in this book, I hope it's somehow explained in Sunrise on the Reaping. Same with Sejanus. I don't see Sejanus's future being very bright either. There's not many characters in this book that I like. I'm anticipating Snow just poisoning a bunch of people. That's what I think. Anyway, I'm excited to keep reading, so I'll check in once I've finished the book. I finished the book. Let's just get into it. Snow is a peacekeeper. He requests to go to District 12. Highbottom is like relishing in banishing him. We find out that Highbottom and Snow's dad were friends back in the day, and something happened between them to ruin their relationship, and now Highbottom has animosity towards Snow's parents and in turn Snow himself. Snow has been kind of insufferable this entire time, but like in part 3 specifically, I find him to be so annoying. As soon as he shows up to the district, he's worried that people will like recognize him and that his reputation will be tarnished. And it's like, girl, no one cares. No one's thinking about you. Everyone's on the brink of starvation. But anyway, he's super depressed until Sejanus randomly shows up. Oh yeah, I also listened to the audiobook and realized I was pronouncing Sejanus and Tigris wrong. Sejanus actually got into a lot of trouble as well from all the shit that he pulled in the arena. And so Sejanus's daddy bought the academy a new lab and a new gymnasium in exchange for Sejanus to receive a diploma and become a peacekeeper instead of maybe something a little bit more drastic. Sejanus said that he refused to accept the deal unless Snow also got a diploma. So Snow did technically graduate. After that, they start hearing rumors that a girl named Lucy will be performing at the Hob. So they plan on going to the performance on Saturday so that Snow can reveal himself to her. Before that happens, though, Snow and Sejanus are required to witness a man being hung within District 12. The man's name is Arlo, and he bombed, I think, the mines in protest against the Capitol and ended up killing 3 people, 2 of which I think were peacekeepers. He starts screaming at his wife Lil to run away, but then as he's screaming her name, he passes away. Arlo's screams are being repeated through Jabberjays. Snow hates it, so he comes up with this idea that he pitches to his commanders, where he's like, what if we killed all of the Jabberjays and all of the Mockingjays, and then we will get more target practice? They were all for it, but they wanted them to send a group of Jabberjays back to the Capitol for testing. So Snow gets assigned this task of helping capture the Jabberjays and sending them back to the Capitol. Sejanus was really torn up about the whole hanging, and he confides in Snow that he doesn't want to be a peacekeeper anymore. Snow just finds it annoying. He doesn't understand Sejanus's perspective, and he doesn't understand why Sejanus cares so much about other people. Eventually, they go to the Hob when Lucy Gray performs, and they have this very sweet moment where they're reunited until Lucy Gray's ex shows up. His name is Billy. He was cheating on her, I think, with the mayor's daughter, and then Billy showed up to the mayor's house, and then the following day was the reaping, where Lucy Gray's name got pulled. So Lucy Gray is convinced that the mayor's daughter purposely had Lucy Gray's name pulled so that she could have Billy to herself. So that was their falling out, and that's why she hates him. Snow is also extremely jealous of Billy. Any implication that there could be lingering feelings on either end, he is not okay with. And the way he views Lucy Gray too, it's as if she is an object that he owns. It actually really pisses me off. So on their next day off, Sejanus and Snow visit Lucy Gray in her house. As he's approaching her, he overhears Lucy Gray writing the Hanging Tree song, which is the song that Katniss sang in Mockingjay. And we find out in this book that that song is actually about Arlo. I really liked that part. I liked that connection that she made there. Anyway, they kiss a lot. They have their whole moment together. They both agree that they should keep their relationship a secret. Lucy Gray's perspective is to protect them in case it's unsafe, and Snow just wants to protect his reputation because he's annoying. Right before they're about to leave Lucy Gray's house, they see Sejanus and Billy kind of conspiring against each other and whispering, and Snow asks him about it later, and Sejanus confesses that he is working with some of the rebels because, again, he actually has empathy towards other people. Snow, again, just gets really, really upset. He's convinced that Sejanus is just constantly getting into trouble. He's kind of becoming a liability for Snow. All of the suffering and distress that Snow experiences during the war, he blames on the rebels as opposed to blaming anything on the Capitol. So he feels that it's the district's punishment to live in poverty and live the way they do because it's teaching them a lesson and preventing another war from happening. Snow yells at Sejanus, but he doesn't think that he actually got through to him. And he also notices that Sejanus is kind of being really sneaky and lying to him. So while Snow is capturing the Jabberjays, Sejanus confesses to him that he is in fact working with the rebels, and a group of people are trying to leave Panem and go north. And while Sejanus is confessing this to him, Snow is recording it via a Jabberjay. So his confession is within that Jabberjay, but then he just cages it to be sent back to the Capitol. And this is where I get really pissed off with him because it's just let him go. Let him run away. He's not hurting anyone. Just let him go with the little rebels. They can live outside of the Capitol. He just wants to be away from the Capitol because he hates everything that it stands for. Worst case scenario, he dies. The next concert that they have at the Hob, Snow notices that Sejanus sneaks out, and Snow follows him, and he follows them into this back room. Snow walks into the room, and one of the rebel leaders puts a gun to his head, and Sejanus vouches for him. Then immediately Lucy Gray follows Snow into the room. And then the mayor's daughter walks in, and she's just being a little a-hole. And Snow notices that she's backing away and is concerned that she's going to leave, because if she leaves and tattles on them, his reputation is fucked. So in like a really heated moment, Snow ends up killing the mayor's daughter by shooting her. I can't remember who kills Billy, but someone kills Billy. Lucy Gray is just like, what the fuck did I just walk into? Snow turns to her and he's like, just go back to your performance and act like nothing happened. Like, that's your alibi. No one's gonna suspect you. The one rebel leader that has all the guns escapes, and he's like, I'm gonna hide all these weapons, including the gun that Snow used to kill the mayor's daughter. Snow internally is freaking out because he doesn't know where the gun with his fingerprints really is. He doesn't know if the rebel leader succeeded in hiding them. He doesn't know if the rebel leader was caught. The next day, everyone's talking about the murders. A lot of the rumors are saying that rebels did it and no one kind of really cares. Eventually, the commanders pull Sejanus aside and we find out that he is going to be hung. And this is so fucked up. Sejanus is hung to death. No one really knows why. Snow is like, did Dr. Gull hear the message that I sent with the Jabberjays? Did they somehow trace the murders back to Sejanus? Snow feels guilty for like 2 seconds and then just like starts rationalizing it immediately, where he's like, you know, I tried my best to protect him and he was always getting into trouble and this was basically his destiny. He was asking for it. Then Snow eventually gets pulled aside by his commanders, and they reveal that the reason that Sejanus got hung is because Dr. Gull did, in fact, receive Snow's message. So Snow is the reason that Sejanus was hung. Just one more time for him really quick. Snow is convinced that any day now he's gonna get reprimanded because they're gonna find the gun with his fingerprints on it. Lucy Gray reveals to Snow that she is running away and she's leaving because the mayor is convinced that Lucy Gray killed his daughter and he will not leave Lucy Gray alone. She's like, bye, I'm leaving. And then Snow's like, oh no, I'm gonna come with you. He gets up bright and early in the morning to leave, and as he's going to escape under the fence, his commanders find him and they're like, hey, we need to talk to you right away. He thinks that he's about to get caught, but then the commander's like, you passed the commander's test that you took that I didn't mention earlier because I don't care. Then they're like, we're gonna send you to District 2 where you will like start your officer training. But the gun, he doesn't know where the gun is and he thinks he's going to get caught. So he's like, thank you so much, pretends that he's honored, leaves, and then goes into the meadow to find Lucy Gray. They go into this like dilapidated like house, and Snow finds the bag of weapons that the rebel leader must have stowed away in here. And so he finds the gun with his fingerprints, and he now has the only incriminating evidence of him killing the mayor's daughter. And Lucy says that she's gonna leave to go pick Katniss so that they can eat something. And Snow is considering his options, and he decides, shocker, he's gonna dip. He's going to get rid of this evidence, and then he's going to go back to his commanders and be like, yeah, I'll go to District 2. That sounds really nice. Thank you so much. He goes from making the decision that he's going to tell Lucy Gray that he's going to leave to convincing himself that Lucy Gray is actually going to kill him and he needs to kill her. Snow walks out to try to find her. He's holding the gun with his fingerprints on it, and he is like trying to find her to tell her that he needs to leave. And in his head, he starts spiraling where he's like, well, what if she doesn't take it well? Billy kind of screwed her over and she never forgave him and he ended up dead. He tries to follow her footsteps. He goes into the woods and he sees this like orange scarf that she was wearing laying in the bush, and he goes to pick up the scarf and a snake bites him in the hand. He then convinces himself that Lucy Gray planted a trap for a snake to bite him and poison him, and he's like, oh my god, Lucy Gray is trying to kill me. All of a sudden he hears the Hanging Tree song that she was singing, so he hears her voice and he turns around and sees a bunch of mockingjays, and they won't stop singing the song over and over and over again. He goes insane and he just starts like shooting wildly at the birds, and then he just starts spinning in a circle and shooting blindly around him until he has no bullets left. Then he decides that he's just gonna leave and go back to the commander, so then he takes all of the weapons, he throws them into the lakes, he hops on a train and goes to District 2. Except they don't drop him off at District 2, they drop him off at the Capitol. So then he goes to the Capitol and they're like, Dr. Gull wants to see you. And she basically was like, yeah, this was just a summer internship. Whatever. They and live happily ever after. There's like an epilogue where he starts school at university and Dr. Gall's one of his teachers, and basically he's doing great. Sejanus's parents like basically adopt him to be their son. Not really, he doesn't take their name, but they basically fund his entire life because they're so distraught about Sejanus passing away and they think Snow was like truly his best friend. And he visits Highbottom to drop off Sejanus's diploma. Highbottom reveals to Snow that the reason that him and his dad had a falling out is because when they were in school, Dr. Gall assigned them a project of what is like the worst way you could possibly punish your enemies. And Snow's dad got Highbottom super drunk. Highbottom came up with the idea of the Hunger Games. And then Highbottom sobered up the next day and was like, you cannot hand this in. Highbottom was like disgusted by the idea that he created, but Snow's dad handed it in anyway to Dr. Gall, and Dr. Gall put it into fruition. So Highbottom's basically like, she's a psychopath. He was basically like, I could never forgive your dad for it. And Highbottom is addicted to like morphling. So then as Snow is dropping off Sejanus's things, he picks up morphling that was in Sejanus's box for whatever reason and throws it away. And then later on he's like, yeah, I poisoned that, because he knew Highbottom is an addict and he knew Highbottom would take it, and he poisoned Highbottom. The end, happily ever after. We never find out what happens to Lucy Gray. We find out that she never goes back to District 12, so she virtually just kind of disappears and no one really knows what happens to her. But I hate that. Like, I want to know what happens. Like, tell me what happens. I want to know. In general, like, this entire book is like, yeah, Snow was a piece of shit. I think the lore was interesting, and I think it was fun when she would kind of like make connections from this book to the Hunger Games series, but I don't know. I think overall it's like you kind of get Snow's perspective, and I guess you kind of understand like why he is the way that he is. I also kind of wanted more of a storyline between Tigress and Snow. At least in the epilogue, tell us what happened between them. I don't get, what's the point of bringing Tigress back as a character and making her so essential to Snow's upbringing just to not tell us what happened? I don't know if we as readers are just supposed to assume that like Tigress eventually realizes that Snow is like a narcissistic psychopath. I think those aspects of the book just felt a little unsatisfying to me. I like open endings, but I didn't like this open ending. I rated this 3 stars. Anyway, I think that's it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I'm really looking forward to reading Sunrise on the Reaping. That video will be posted in the near future. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.